Hi everyone, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. Today we're going to take an in-depth look into the Onyx Boox Poke 2, the newest and the smallest member of the Onyx Boox family. Let's see what it has in store for us. Here's the Poke 2. And as you can see from my hands, it's a very small device. So this is a 6-inch e-reader, so it is not a note-taking device. It only has the e-reader capabilities, and it's a very small, super portable ultralight format. Most impressively, it's very thin at 6.8 inches, same thickness as Max 3, but the lightness is what impressed, which is something that you would actually expect at a device like this, but still it's compact, not too light, but light enough that you never actually feel it. At 135 grams, I think it does the job really well. So let's cover the design overview, and as I mentioned in the unboxing, I am a big fan of the design, and now I have been using it for almost a month now, and it's a really good format. My initial comment about the bezels being a little bit too wide is unwarranted. Aesthetically, maybe so, but when you're using it, it really lends itself well for holding the device, and otherwise you would actually have your thumbs interfere with the screen, which is definitely not something that you want. So this device does not suffer from that, and it's a very clever design. On the front we have just a big continuous glass panel that is not super reflective. It's actually quite nice and matte. I'm now here having a light that's directly pointed at it, and you can see how it dims the reflection very nicely. Similarly, now I'm pointing it towards the open window, and I can't even catch any of the reflections. So it's extremely good as far as readability goes. The glass panel is not a problem at all. Majority of the front panel is occupied by the 6-inch screen. Then we have this black bezel, and at the bottom we have the lovely gray color with the Black Boox logo. No buttons, no fingerprint readers or anything like that. Similarly, the backside is equally lovely. So it's super simple. There's just a Boox logo and a number, I guess a serial number or something like that, and nothing else, absolutely nothing else. In the bottom, the device does not have speakers, so nothing is interfering with this lovely gray color. And the material is plastic, but it's very nice, soft and quiet plastic, so it's not scratchy. As you can hear, it's very soft but not slippery. So that's something that I think is a really good thing. And when you're holding it in the hand, the tactile response from the glass on the front and the smooth plastic, almost rubberized plastic on the back, you are constantly getting a very pleasant high quality feedback here. Nothing on either of the sides. On the top we have a power button with the blue LED. That's the only thing that I still don't like. The blue light is really out of place when the design has evolved so much to this stage that that old blue light does not fit anymore. It should have been white or something like that. And at the bottom we have a micro USB and a microphone port, so no USB-C. Why no USB-C? I don't know. Maybe they were cutting costs, but the device is at 6.8 millimeters. It's the exact same thickness, or should I say thinness, as the Max 3, and we know that Max 3 has a USB-C, so it's not a matter of it not being able to accommodate or house a USB-C port. It's more likely keeping the costs down. Overall, the design, I am a huge fan of this. So first impressions were really positive, and now pretty much a month of using it, I am even more in love with this thing. It's one of those devices that just because how pretty and good it feels in the hand, it makes you want to spend time with it. And as a result, it switched me off from my audiobooks and back onto reading books, simply because I wanted to spend more time with the device. So that's a huge plus. If the design of Poke 2 is a sign of what's to come from Onyx Boox, I can't wait. I really can't wait to see what they have in store, because this thing, from any way you look at it, ergonomically, visually, it's just amazing. I really, really love it. The same story continues with the build quality. It's absolutely flawless, and you can actually notice this kind of upwards trend from Note 2 to Nova 2 and now to Poke 2. Each device, each generation of devices is better, more quality, more precision, more tighter, designed more better. And Poke 2, definitely, as far as the design and the build quality goes, I think it tops all of the recent devices, Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3. This one feels by far as the most high quality device. Anywhere you touch, feel and look, everything is manufactured absolutely perfectly and flawlessly. Along the sides of the device you have this metal black edge which encircles the device completely, and it gives it this rigidity and feel of solidity. It just feels really, really well put together. The same story is with the corners and outlines. Everything is fitted precisely, and as with Max 3, you won't find any ill fittings or anything like that. And the quality story continues everywhere, including the power button, which is metal. All over the place, this feels like a really high quality device, which it actually is. Don't let the small size fool you, because this is the youngest sibling of the Onyx Boox family, where Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3 are. Why? Because it packs the same octa-core 2 GHz CPU inside. Yeah, this thing is an Android 9 powered 8-core 2 GHz CPU device. It sports 2 GB of RAM, so less than Nova 2, but it also has 32 GB of internal storage, not expandable like any of the other devices. Some specifications list that the USB on the bottom is OTG, some don't. That gives me a little bit of a conflicting info, but unfortunately I do not have an micro USB OTG hub to test that. But if it is an OTG, then you can actually plug in a USB drive and expand the storage that way, if you would need that. The screen, as I said, is the only touch capacitive. It's a 6-inch e-ink Carta display with a resolution of 1448 by 1072 pixels, which translates to 300 pixels per inch, which is excellent. It means that the letters and the contrast and everything is going to be very nice, crisp and clear. It is equipped with the standard front light that most of the Onyx Boox devices have, which is sporting both the blue and the orange light. And as far as the connectivity goes, it has a Wi-Fi, both 2.4G and 5G networks are supported. It has Bluetooth 4.1 and for audio or peripherals, and a micro USB, as I mentioned. Audio is handled only via the Bluetooth, as it does not have speakers. However, it does have a microphone, so you can use speech recognition to text feature if you so choose. The device is powered by 1500 milliamp battery, which should provide for plenty of battery life, and for me that definitely is the case, but more on that when we cover the battery section. Suffice to say, this is without a doubt the most powerful 6-inch e-ink tablet there is. Since it's running an Android underneath, it has to be super powerful so that it's smooth, but that just gives us a huge benefit, because this doubles as much more than just an e-reader, as we will see further on in the review. The screen itself is something that actually impressed me, because the first impression might be, oh my, 6 inches is way too small for me, and how will that ever work? However, coupled with the absolutely astonishingly awesome e-reader app that the Onyx Boox products come with, and the front light. In this case, the front light really does help a lot. The clarity is absolutely spot on and amazing. So you not only can you customize your ebook or PDF to be exactly the way you want it, it means the 300 pixels per inch on such a small screen means that all of it can be used. You do not have to have super large fonts in order to have clarity. It feels like reading on a page. The front light, of course, I've just turned it on so that you can see text correctly. However, this is it now turned off. And you can see that the white or the bright area is quite nice and bright, actually brighter than Max 3, I think. And under the same conditions, it does feel a little bit more clear. All of this actually helps with the clarity of reading. So remember, what you're seeing now is no front light enabled at all. However, really bright lighting conditions. But you can see with my hands that it's not exploded or anything like that. It's fairly normal. One thing that I will say, and it has to do with something that I mentioned before, I prefer white devices for a very simple fact, and that has to do with the persistence of vision, and that's how our eyes work. And that's a bit of a longer story, but long story short, during the millions of years that we've evolved as a little bit of a hunter and a little bit of a prey, our eyes evolved to first detect outlines, and then we fill in all of the details. That's why if you stare at an image on an inverted background, when you close your eyes, you will see that image dance around. That's the image persistence thingy. Now, when you have a black outline and then a white square inside, and the thing that you're trying to focus on is inside of that white, what's actually happening is that your eyes first notice this black outline, and then they actually fill in the rest. Whereas if you don't have a black outline, if you have a white outline, the text on the page won't have to fight against the outline of the device itself. This is the reason why reading on a white device is actually more pleasant and causes a little bit less eye strain, because physically you will exert yourself a little bit less than with the black device. However, it looks amazing. I just wish that there was a white version as well, because that's my preference, and now I hope I managed to explain adequately to everyone interested why I prefer the white devices and why they might be a little bit more convenient for reading formats. 1500 milliamps might not seem like much. However, in reality, the battery management, like other Onyx devices, is absolutely exceptional, and this one is no different. On June 7th, I think I started using this device, and I've been using it daily. Now it's July 5th on recording of this, and I'm down to 29%. The device has been used for browsing, email checking, but primarily for reading, because it's an e-reader. I typically read about 2 hours a day on and off in different intervals during the day, and yeah, for that type of use, I've been using it now for weeks, I think 4 weeks, and it still doesn't require a charge. So I think that's a huge plus as far as I'm concerned, and I don't see any inadequacies as far as the battery capacity and battery life goes. However, as always, I would like to mention that, as you can see, my Wi-Fi is off. I always set up my devices that the Wi-Fi by default is off, and I simply turn it on when I hook up online to check something up, and when I'm done, I turn it off so that I can preserve the battery and that I'm not online all the time, because I simply don't want to be. Naturally speaking, if you're using Wi-Fi constantly and Bluetooth, the battery life will be impacted simply because it's using more power. The general overview and the user interface is extremely similar to Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3 experience, simply because Poke 2 belongs to the exact same family. And if you go to settings, you'll see that it's actually running the same 2.3 OS version as the rest of the devices. There are two notable differences. First of one, which we will notice immediately here, and that is the absence of the Notes app. This device doesn't have any note-taking capabilities, writing capabilities, or anything like that. Therefore, the Notes app is gone. So now we have library, store, storage, apps, settings, but no notes. And even if you go into the apps, it is nowhere to be found. So one of the viewers asked, is it actually possible to maybe look at the notes that were created on a Note 2, Nova 2 or a Max 3 here on Poke 2 and maybe add a text box and type, I guess. But no, that's not a possibility. Personally, I think that's a very limited type of use case scenario, but maybe there's a lot of people who are actually looking for that. So maybe in the future, that's something that will be added. But for me personally, the way I've been using this device, I don't see it as something that would be terribly useful or functional. The user interface is slightly changed because of the format. Now the apps bar is no longer on the side, it has been moved to the bottom, and I think it fits really well. At the top we have the normal notifications area, and the middle is occupied with the content area. As any Android device and as any other Onyx Boox device, when you slide down, you have the menu that's device related, so it doesn't matter what type of app or what it is that you're doing underneath. No matter what it is that you're doing, if you swipe down, you will have this menu, and that's important, like any other Android device. But on Poke 2 especially, because we have no physical buttons and we have no capacitive buttons either, the only way to actually get to the back, home or the multitask button is via the swipe down. So if you want to go back, you have to swipe down and then press back. If you want to go home, you gotta swipe down and then press home. Alternatively, that can be also mapped to the navigation ball itself, which is something that I have done. So you can use the navigation ball to map one of the functions to be back, and another one can also be home if you want to. So that is something that does help quite a bit, but you are still forced to have two interactions for one function, where before you could only just press a button and you're there. So that's something that I did notice, and I think is a little bit of a yeah. I find myself very often wishing there was a button. So I really wish there was a button. That's the only thing design-wise that I think it's missing, is simply because I find myself too often going swipe down or navigation ball and then back. Now, granted, these are like, as far as the third world problems go, this is a minor one, or close to negligible, but it is there. There's definitely going to be a certain portion of people who are going to say like, no button, two actions for one thing. For me personally, I don't think it's a big deal, but I do notice it, and if I do notice it, and I'm finding out that I'm a fairly tolerant user, the more I'm reading through the comments and interacting with people, anyway, I'm pretty sure some people will react to it. So if you find yourself to be hypersensitive to that kind of stuff, then just be aware that this will annoy you and it will piss you off, and maybe the device is not for you because of that. Or maybe you could just grow and be a little bit more tolerant. Who knows? It's up to you. That's what a device is, and that's what a device does. In the top menu, you have a very important one, which is the screen refresh mode. And like any other Onyx Boox, latest Onyx Boox devices, you have 4 different screen refresh modes. You have normal, speed mode, A2 mode, and the X mode. Now, we're going from slowest to fastest, and the trade-off is quality and ghosting. So, normal mode, least ghosting and slowest, X mode, most ghosting and fastest. What's the golden ratio? Well, I actually use Poke 2 in speed mode and A2 mode. Speed mode I use for reading because ghosting is close to negligible, and the speed difference compared to normal mode when reading is actually really noticeable. And the A2 mode I use when I am online, when I need to scroll through content and reading emails and things like that. So those are my use case scenarios. X mode, you can watch videos if you really want to, but the ghosting is so crazy that it's more an experimental and kind of like, hey, look what this can do, but in reality, only if you absolutely have to, but it is there. It's good to know that it is there. Additional options that you have is you can change the overall contrast of the device, and you also have the option of editing the top bars. At the moment there's nothing more that you can add. You can just simply rearrange tiles if you want to. You also have your audio controls are here, and your front light control is here as well, where you can adjust the orange light or the night light and the blue light and the daytime light separately, or you can sync them and then they will change at the same time. This way also you can flip on one of the switches and it will simply turn it off if they are synced. If they are not synced, you have the option of turning off one or the other. As far as the library itself goes, it functions pretty much exactly the same as the Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3. So you can arrange your titles in recent, by collections. You can add your sub-collections as folders. You can search through your library by typing the name that you want to type or whatever it is that you may want to do. You can do multi-select. And then perform actions here, which are move, delete, lock, unlock, or cancel, getting out of the multi-select. Long press on any one of the titles will bring up the more menus for that title, where you can lock, unlock it, lock it with a pin, rename, move, delete. You can see the exact storage where the actual file is stored locally, and with the open with functionality you can change the default reader program if you so choose. Then we have reading statistics, which is something that's been added fairly recently, and then you also have other options where you can sort and filter through your titles and documents. You can refresh your library or scan book covers, but I have to mention that in all of my workings with any of the devices since the update 2.3, I've never had a need to either refresh or scan, because even when it's plugged in to the computer and I just transfer files on it directly, the library refreshes itself automatically and it comes with the covers immediately. But the options are there. And we have library settings to choose which folders will be refreshed and what is library looking for. And then you can show file names, show file titles, and finally we also have the option of switching to list mode or to cover mode itself. So fairly rudimentary and normal type of functionality in the library, and I think it works really good. Very clear overview. It doesn't have any fancy graphics, it doesn't have any overlaying type of things. I like how clear this is. It's very nice and very easy to understand and use. The store itself is present, but like before, it doesn't have anything that you can buy. And the same rule goes for the store and the apps themselves, simply because they obviously don't want to deal with the security issues and all that kind of stuff with the purchases and all that kind of stuff. It's way too complex. In the store itself, you are limited to copyright-free titles, which are very, very old classic titles, but there's plenty of them. Same as before, same problems pretty much apply. The categorization is a little bit like this, and some improvements to search functionalities would be good. If you're interested to know what are my main complaints, you can check my Nova 2 review and check out the library section, and then you'll see what's what. So the same thing applies, but a certain selection of the classic books is there. So there's something definitely to start you off with. Now let's focus on the star of the show and the whole point of this device, which is the reader itself. And the reader itself is almost as fully capable as on the Note 2 and Nova 2, despite the small format, which is absolutely fantastic. And if you've watched my previous reviews, you will know that I am a huge fan of the Neo reader that's been used by the Onyx Boox devices, because I think that without any shadow of a doubt, it buries the competition like completely and thoroughly. It's just kind of, you have the other reader functionalities and stuff, and then you have this. It's not perfect, but the features that it has are simply unparalleled. First, the formats. It supports tons and tons of formats: EPUBs, PDFs, text documents, documents themselves. It supports images and even audio files if you want. The full list is going to be shown here. One note, it does not deal with DRM files, so you can't directly add your Kindle or your Kobo books. You would need to do the legally shady thing of de-DRMing, and there's plenty of online resources on how to do that. It's not complicated at all. It requires a little bit of time and a little bit of usage, but because it's legally shady and I don't care getting into trouble regarding that, I am not going to show anything like that, and I'm not going to give you any advice on that or an opinion. I'm just telling you that this doesn't handle DRM files, so yeah, what you want to do with it is up to you. I'm going to be focusing as usual on an EPUB and on a PDF document to kind of show what's what and how it works. Regardless of what type of a document it is and what kind of format, most of the functionalities is exactly the same. The only differences are in the formatting options themselves between the EPUB and the PDF formats. I'm currently reading through Monte Cristo after a long time ago, and I'm actually enjoying it. First, the navigation. Well, it's the same as before, but for those who are new to the Onyx Boox platform, you can tap right to go forward, you can tap left to go back, you can tap in the middle to get an option, you can also swipe left, you can swipe right, you can swipe up for the page next, you can swipe down for page back. So any kind of thing that you might be used to is already covered by default. Now, if you touch in the middle, you will get options, and we have two types of options in Neo Reader, the top option and the bottom one. So first, to cover the top one, you have the light, which is the front light control, which is exactly the same as the system-wide front light control. Then we have the dictionary, and we have the search for words or phrases. Then you have the extra menus, which is you can refresh the screen, but more importantly, this is where you have the settings. And the settings are, yeah, you have general settings, you have other types of things, but there's a couple things that are really important here. And the first one is the touch settings. Now, it's possible to configure your screen into touch zones the way you want them to. So by default, it's going to be the touch mode, where it's going to be 3 columns. Left column is page back, middle column is menu, right column is page forward. However, because I've been using it in the garden quite a lot, I've been using mode 6 on this one, so that I can hold it like this without a problem and swipe if I want to, or simply tap where I want to. Now, if any of these 6 are not good for you, you have 3 custom slots where you can define areas how you want to behave for the page before, previous page, next page, and the menu itself. So extremely useful, and something that I think transforms the overall experience very nicely, because you can customize to your needs and situations. So it doesn't have to be locked in just one way and that's it. It's very flexible, and you can change it depending on what your needs are. Then we also have the text-to-speech settings, because the device can actually read text back to you via Bluetooth headphones or speakers. And then you have the export settings when you're exporting a document. This is mainly for the PDFs. Doesn't have much use here, but it does have, if you want to save a different copy that holds all the highlights and annotations and stuff like that, so that you can keep the original intact and the one that's edited as a separate document with the highlights and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have the option of screenshots, where you're going to save your screenshots, and of course the version number. Now back onto the control itself. How do you do a screenshot? Well, you simply tap on the diagonals at the same time, and then you grab a screenshot and you can save it, share it, or discard it if you want to. You can also use a upper right corner for bookmarking. And you can also do a long press on a word to select a word. The dictionary will automatically come and it will show you the word if it has it. Then you have options to search the word, search the web, translate the word, speak the word, search the document with that word, and you can turn it into an highlight or an annotation if you want to. Now these two handles that appear, you can actually expand it into a highlight. And once you expand it into a highlight, we have our toolbar for highlights, and highlights can be in black and gray color. They can have 4 different formats of a full line, wavy line, dotted line, full color, or redaction. You can also delete the highlight. You can copy the highlight and then paste the selection of the text if you wanted to. You can add an annotation, so I can just say like, all right, so this one I would like to be an annotation, so I'm gonna just say this is my annotation. There we go. And I'm gonna update, and now this has 3 little dots here that shows that's an annotation. Now I can make another highlight and I can choose, all right, so I want it this way, but this time I want it to be a full color and I want it black. So you can have different formats of different highlights on the same page, which is a really cool thing. You can also add the annotation here, or you can delete the annotation entirely and the selection itself. If you want to delete an annotation, you simply go here and you delete it. Then we have one more thing here. This is a little app called the navigation ball, and this is present regardless of what app you are in. So this is something that's system-wide, so even if I go back to home, it's gonna retain its position and it's going to do whatever it needs to do. You can program this by going into the apps and going to the navigation ball, and it's a super handy little tool. Because of the small format on the Poke 2, you only have 6 slots. On the other ones you actually have 9, but you can pick what type of function it will be. So for me, for example, you can see that I have back. I'm going to launch Gmail because I'm using Gmail here. Then I'm going full screen refresh. I'm switching between screen refresh modes or speeds. I can shut it down and I can hide my navigation ball. Now the hide navigation ball is this one here, and I think this one's really important because it changes its usability dramatically. Normally when you're using this, because it's a small format, naturally you want to maximize as much as possible, and then this ball is always going to be in the way no matter what you do. But if you minimize it and you make your margins so that they don't intersect with this little minimized icon, then it becomes absolutely perfect. Furthermore, if I just swipe out from the side, I'll have another toolbar here, and I'm going to show how I made it actually go away. This one can also be minimized and shown as an icon here, and that's a shortcut for menu, previous page, next page, full screen refresh. I'm not using that much, so I decided to actually enable an option which hides it completely when it's minimized, and when I actually want it, I simply swipe from the side and it appears again. This is a reader-based behavior, and you can configure it, of course, in your reader. So if you go to the menu of the reader, more menus, go into settings, and if I go into general settings, option number 3 will say hide the floating bars indicator when it's contracted. Expand the floating bar by swiping from left or right. And if I turn that on, then I have this type of behavior, which I really like. So for me, this works really good. And being able to configure everything exactly the way I want it is one of the huge pluses of the Onyx Boox reader platform. Now, as far as the options for the actual reader go, they are mainly here at the bottom, and by default you will always start with the progress menu, and that's this here. So default, it will tell you what's the title, which the chapter is. You can use these buttons on the side to flip between chapters. You can also scroll through here if you wanted to, back and forward. You can use these back and forward buttons to flip through current and previous page that you've viewed, which is actually quite useful. You can have it read back. You can have a slideshow, so it can actually play up to 20,000 pages in a slideshow. Yes, 20,000, not 2,000, 20,000. You have a page layout overview where you can actually look at the pages in this way. So it can go up to 4 if you so choose. You close it on the X. That's pretty much it as far as the progress go. Now, this device, because of the octa-core, it's unbelievably snappy. So everything happens immediately, regardless of what it is that you're doing. And now I've done it way too many times, so I'm gonna try and see if I can go back. How far can we go back? I've never tried this. There we go. Cool. So you can go back and forward quite a few, which is kind of cool. I never had to use that before, but that's nice. Good save. Now the next one is the table of contents, and the table of contents is super packed with features. By default, you have your normal table of contents, which you can slide up and down. You can change if it's going to be ascending or descending, and you can also expand it to full screen or contract it back to 2/3 of a screen as it is now. Now the table of contents will also show your bookmarks if you have them. Now if I just now bookmark this and I go back to my table of contents and in bookmarks, there it is. And the important thing here is that not only can you manage your bookmarks, but you can also rename them. So by tapping on this icon here, I can say my bookmark 1. And now this becomes my bookmark 1. And if I don't want it to, no longer want it to, then I just delete it. And also my highlights and my annotations are here. And this is where things get to be really cool. And these are these small icons here. So you can multi-select, you can select all of them. You can select individual ones. So that's the empty box is basically the selection box. And those that are selected, you can perform these operations here. So if I wanted to delete just 2 highlights or annotations, I would select them and then I would hit the delete icon here. You can also simply tap on them and get to the annotation directly. So immediately you get to the point or a highlight where you want it to be. But most importantly is for me this little button here, and that is the export. So for example, if I wanted to, I could simply tap this button, select all of them and then export, and I can export all of my highlights and annotations as a text file. And that's very freaking cool. That's something that I really like and I haven't noticed as a functionality in other e-readers. So that's a big plus for me. Finally, we have the formatting options. And this is where I'm gonna show a PDF and an EPUB because formatting options are a little bit different. So in an EPUB, in both formats, you have insane amount of formatting. So let's just first cover here. So we have typeface, format, and spacing style. So first in the typeface, we have font size, which can, be varied from small to uber huge. And keep in mind, this is Count Monte Cristo. This is a huge book, and this thing is just eating it like it's nothing. You can just go like this and it just transforms the whole book immediately. And on smaller books, it's even much more impressive and faster. So I'm very impressed with the speed, and again, that octa-core CPU is just such a powerful thing and such a needed thing, even though it's just an e-reader. It just makes it so much more usable. Then we have font selection. You have total of 232 fonts in 47 pages, but no search function, which makes it very difficult to use. So I really hope that in one of the coming updates we do get a search function for the fonts themselves. This is a small thing because I get that not many people are going to go totally bananas, but it's an easy thing to implement, just a search bar, and then you search for your fonts and maybe have favorites. I mean, it's amazing that we have 232 fonts, but we need a management set of utilities for that as well, for it to become usable, because as it is now, not very usable. And we have encoding types, 18 different encoding types to ensure that any font that you're using, that it's actually displaying correctly. And then we have the option of using the indents for new paragraphs or not. Then we have in the formatting, you can orient with the letter T type of indication, same as with the system-wide orientation. Then you have separate image contrast and text contrast. So it separates the image and text, and you have separate control for image and text. Extremely useful, especially on PDFs, on EPUBs, but on PDFs, it's amazingly useful. And then you can also, of course, embolden your text for better vision and to actually see what works best for you. And finally, we have spacing style, where not only you have the line spacing, which most of them have, but for me, the most important one is the paragraph spacing. Because more often than not, we don't have paragraph spacing in other e-readers, and it's like if I wanted to have more space between the paragraphs, I have to space up the lines, and I can never get the format exactly the way I want it to. Not the case on the Poke 2 and on the Onyx Boox platform. Here I can get it precisely the way I want it to for each of the books. So top, bottom margin, left side margin, everything as you want it to. So this is something that I really, really love. And one thing that I would mention, I think would be kind of cool to have, is to have presets, like formatting presets. So that would be a very funky thing, to create your own presets and to be able to recall them. Because we have so many options here, I think that would be a very, very cool thing, and hopefully we might actually even see that at some point in the future. So now let's switch to a PDF. So this is an image heavy PDF that's not optimized for e-readers at all. So this is meant to work on a computer screen. And you can see that it actually works really, really fast. It doesn't matter what you do to it. It just simply, if there's images or not images, it doesn't care. It's just going through it like a boss. Now the difference that I mentioned between the speed mode and normal mode, you'll notice it now. So look at this. Now in normal mode, it's noticeably slower, and it's trying to, you know, kind of draw everything out and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the speed mode is really, really good, especially for thumbing through documents very quickly. Really, really good. You have the same types of functionalities on PDFs as well. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. So this is, yeah, I'm zooming in and zooming out. So this is in speed mode. Now, obviously this will be faster if I go to A2 mode, then it's going to be even more faster. So now it's really, really fast. And you can see how in this instance, when you're actually dragging to zoom in and out, this is where, you know, Poke 2 totally differentiates itself from the competition. Because of the octa-core CPU, and because you have the option of using the ultra fast refresh modes. I mean, if I went to the X mode, this will be even faster. So this is ridiculous. I mean, you know, X mode is being advertised for videos, but it can certainly be used for this quite a lot. Now, there we go. So now you have huge amount of ghosting and trashing, and that's the reason why I'm not a fan of the X mode. So for me, A2 mode is the golden standard. Yes, it's a little bit slower, but the reactiveness is most definitely there, and it actually works really, really good. Thoroughly impressive, the performance and the customization of what you can actually do as a reader. It's an incredibly powerful device. Say that in this format, which is certainly small, on a PDF, usually you will need some formatting, and on e-readers, usually you just are able to zoom in and zoom out, and that's pretty much it. Not on the Poke 2. On the Poke 2, yeah, you have formatting, which is kind of cool. So you have pagination, which can be just a page, or it can also be a continuous type of scroll. So if I switch to A2 mode, then I can scroll through the document itself. So I can just keep scrolling like if it was a web page or something like that. Of course, I recommend an A2 mode for scrolling because speed. Then we have the orientation, we have the zoom, which I showed. You can have the zoom region. Now we have crop, so you can have page fit, which usually works really well. So it's going to try its best to fit the page as best as it can, and it works good. But as you can see, this document is uber tiny. I mean, the fonts with 300 ppi, they are clear, but they are super small. So there is an option, we'll get to it later. So now we're just gonna reset the formatting, then you can adjust the contrast, and you can remove watermarks, sharpen images, yes, image contrast and text contrast separate on PDFs as well, which is a huge thing, because let's say I find an image, let's say here, oh, this is too contrasty. Let's lower it. Much better. I actually like that quite a lot more. So it's a very usable feature, and you can embolden text differently. And of course you have reflow options, which this document is not going to be happy with that, so I'm not going to show them, but they are there and they work. You can see the examples of reflowing in my Nova 2 review, because I've done quite a bit of reflowing there to show that. But now we get to the option that I love the most, which is the navigation. So in PDFs you have an option, formatting option called navigation, and now when I go to navigation you have something called comic mode, article mode, but I will by default go into more settings to show you what it does. It will divide the page into 4 subpages, or as many subpages as you want. It can divide them into 2, 4, 6 or 9 subpages, and these subframes you can you can actually determine in which order they will go. So these are the numbers. So I'm gonna, in this case, I'm dividing my page into 4 subframes, and the navigation will go 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I divide it like this, suddenly it's there. So if I use my next page, I'm gonna go to the next frame of the same page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if I get to the end of the page, next one, I'm flipping over to the next page with the same setup. So suddenly a PDF that was barely noticeable and usable, and it was so small, now it's perfectly usable and readable. And this is the mode that I'm using pretty much the most, and the flexibility is astonishing, because you can range in any way you want. So the direction can go 1, 2, 3, 4, or it can go right way, 1, 2, 3, 4. It can go vertically in columns, left hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, vertically, right hand, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can also flip between the amount of frames, 6 frames, 6 columns, and ultimately 9 frames like this. So even though this is a small format device, the reader itself makes it possible to read even the smaller type of non-optimized documents on a small format like this is. So this is something that I have yet to see any other e-reader actually do. And since I spend a lot of time in PDFs, that navigation option is absolutely a godsend. So it's a huge plus for me, and like the rest of the Onyx Boox families, it functions amazingly well. When comparing Poke 2 to Note 2, Nova 2 and Max 3, the second thing that's missing from its list of functionalities is the dual screen. So you don't have dual screen functionality, you don't have the whole option of having 2 different documents or document plus translation and things like that. You can still translate with the selection, but you can't translate the entire page, and this is simply because I guess they figured that the format is too small. I wish there was that at least as an option, but obviously that was too difficult for them to actually make it fit. I guess it was just too small, because then you have like 2-3 inches, and that's just way too small. So I think it's perfectly understandable. I just wish there was a translate option as well, because it would make it a little bit more usable, and it's something that I use a lot on my Nova 2, the split mode and the translation, because it makes things a lot easier. However, I think it's perfectly understandable that a 6-inch screen can't fit a split screen function. That kind of makes sense. One of the things that's really awesome about the Onyx Boox platform, for me at least, is the ability to actually just treat it as a normal Android device, which means that you have full access to your storage and you can add folders, rearrange folders, and do everything as you normally would. It doesn't have any fancy interface around it or any fancy names or anything like that, because it's unnecessary. And also, you can just plug it into your PC or Mac, and it appears as a USB drive, and you can rearrange and dump your content onto it or off it that way, without any need for any accounts or anything like that. And you can even keep it offline if you wanted to. So that's a very, very cool thing for me. Now, the next thing that's obviously a huge plus is that it's an Android device. So it's an Android environment. With a caveat, you, like any other Onyx Boox device, you first have to enable the Google Play Store. The process is really easy. You simply go to Settings, you go to Applications, and then at the bottom of the applications you have the option Enable Google Play. Once you click on Enable Google Play, it will tell you what you need to do. Essentially, what you will need to do is you need to let it bind the GSF ID to the Google Play Store, so that the Google Play Store becomes aware of this device, because otherwise it will not be registered on the Google Play Store. So that's basically a registration type of process. The way it's done is, once you enable it, you will need to log in to Google Play with your Google account. Once you do log in, then you need to wait roughly about 5 minutes, restart the device if you want to, and the next time, after 5 or 10 minutes or so, next time you actually go into the Google Play Store and you log in with your account, you will be able to experience the Google Play Store as you normally would, like on any other Android 9 device. So that actually works pretty well. Now, of course, if you're online, then it might be able to download as well the covers for the apps. So let's wait for it to get hooked up online. And there we go. Now we're online. I can browse my apps the way I wanted to, and this is where I would actually switch to an A2 mode, simply because everything becomes a little bit more snappy and it becomes something that you can use more normally. Now, one thing that you need to remember is that this is an e-ink device, and it is the responsibility of the developers themselves to actually recognize, hey, this is an e-ink device, or no, this is not an e-ink device. And they, as a developer, they have something called a device catalog, where they need to approve or unapprove the types of the devices that can run. So a common question that comes for Onyx Boox devices is, can you install OneNote or anything like that? And in this case, can you install a Kindle? So yeah, I can install my Kindle, and I can use Kindle if I wanted to. So I can just now load my Kindle app. So I go to Monte Cristo on my Amazon Kindle, and it works. But the problem is that it's going to have this stupid, idiotic thing, not the page turn animation, but it's still gonna slide, because whatever, I mean, and there isn't an option to actually turn that off. So this is something that you don't have on an Amazon Kindle device, but you have on an Android 9 app. And this is what you're running. You're running an Android 9 Kindle app on an e-ink device. Now, the app itself is not bothering to recognize, is this an e-ink device or not, but it should. Technically, the app itself should recognize, is it an e-ink device or not, and then it would disable animations and all the stuff that's not appropriate for an e-ink device, and then it would work. But similarly, that's why OneNote and all that kind of stuff doesn't work. So yes, Onyx Boox is an Android 9 device and it fully supports it, but the apps themselves are not checking if their app is compatible with the device. So I hope that clarifies some of the issues that there's been like huge discussions about that, and it's just kind of like backwards. Anywho, here I am, I'm reading my Kindle content on normally, and it just works as a normal Kindle would work. However, I am running it in A2 mode simply because when I'm in speed mode, this stupid slide thing is slow. And it's not slow because of the device, it's slow because it's forcing the device to refresh every frame of the slide animation. And that's just not how e-ink devices are supposed to be treated app-wise. And similar to other Onyx Boox devices, the customizability options are huge as well. And not only are you able to do all the stuff that we talked about, but you can also handle images, such as, for example, if I wanted to go into a PDF, and let's say that I grab a screenshot of this, and then I save it. Yep, so now it's saved to storage screenshots. And if I now go back home to storage, and I find my screenshots, let's find here, there we go, we got screenshots, there's the PNG. If I long press on the PNG, I can set it as a screensaver, and then I can set it as a standby image 1, 2, 3, or image power off. So if I set it as standby image, I can just go okay, he's gonna process it, and let's see, it's gonna cycle between 3 images. There we go. So you can just customize it any way you want, and yeah, it will just keep. And the best of all is you can do all of those images preparations on your computer, then hook up the device via micro USB to your computer, transfer the images into the whatever folder you want, and you simply assign them. Easy peasy. And it's something that I really, really like. Something that should be an option on pretty much every device so that you are able to customize it, make it your own. Really, really good stuff. Now, as far as the extra functionality goes, well, it's all of the Android 9 stuff. So yeah, I can use my Amazon Kindle as I've shown, but I can also install my Gboard because I prefer that keyboard over the built-in keyboard. I can use my Gmail, I can use my Dropbox if I wanted to, I can use my Google Drive if I wanted to for backing things up. I can do whatever you want. So basically most of the productivity tools and most of the productivity functionality is here. And if you want the distractions of social media and stuff, you can certainly do that with the A2 mode and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, there's also videos showing this, playing some YouTube videos, which is something that I'm not gonna do simply because I don't think it works properly. Yes, technically you can play it, but it doesn't look good and it's not usable in reality. Yes, I can arrange this and make conditions so good that it can kind of look like you can play it, but in reality, whenever I wanted to kind of use it to watch something, I couldn't. That's the reason why I'm not showing it. And I don't think it's meant to be used for that. It's just kind of a very nice thing that hopefully will get somewhere a little bit later on. But yeah, for now, I think it's still a little bit of an experimental thing. And for me, the priority modes that I'm using on a Poke 2 are speed mode and A2 mode. So not only is it an incredibly powerful and versatile e-reader, it's actually an Android 9 tablet as well. And that just puts it in a category of its own, and it's coupled with the octa-core CPU and actually hardware that can support that, battery management that can actually make it last a long time. This thing has a ton of value for the money. Alright, so suffice to say, it packs a big punch even though it comes in a very small package. It's conclusion time, and let's try and wrap up this little product and see what we got. So first, the cons. Well, the number one con for me is the absence of a button. Now, I know that the design is super sexy and sleek because it doesn't have a button, but functionality-wise, it's an Android device, so it doesn't have to have a physical button, but a capacitive touch button. It would have been a very welcome addition because, as I mentioned during the review, I do miss it. Yes, you do have alternative. Of course, you can swipe down. That's the only way you can do it. Or you can use the navigation ball, but it's not entirely enough and it does hinder the experience a little bit. Now, this is not a big deal by any means, but it is something that will most definitely affect some of the users, and it affects me a tiny little bit. Not enough to distance me from the device, but it is there. It's something that I wish it had. Second con for me would be that it's not an IPX certified device, so it's not actually waterproof. Now, who knows, maybe it can withstand a splash or two, but it does have a micro USB opening here, it does have a microphone opening here, and it does have a button over here. So there's plenty of places where the water can come in. Now, granted, the top of it is just one big glass surface, so there's very little chance that something bad will happen if you have a tiny little spill on it, like water or something, because it's just glass. However, I wouldn't dip it into water simply because there is no IPX certification, and that's something that the competitors do. For example, Kobo Libra and the Kindle mid to high tier devices, they have that. And Kobo H2O Libra and the Amazon Paperwhite, they are both in a lower price ratio than the Poke 2, and they are waterproof. So that's something that this device is missing. The next one is something that's gonna be a good and a bad thing. So for some people, the size, the small size is definitely going to be a hindrance or an issue of some sort. Then again, it is a 6-inch e-ink reader device, so you need to know what you're getting into. So if you're buying a 6-inch e-ink device and you plan on reading technical PDF documents or anything like that that has small formulas and stuff like that, it's not really the device's fault, that's your own fault for expecting the impossible. However, even as such, as I've shown with the navigation option for PDF formatting, this guy can actually deliver even in that field. However, size will be a con for some people. The device doesn't have a DRM support. None of the Onyx Boox devices have DRM support, and that's definitely a con that's going to be consistent throughout all the models until it actually appears, or if it ever appears, but it is something that you need to be aware of. And finally, the price is going to be a bit of a con simply because for a 6-inch e-ink reader at $180, $190 for the device and another $20, $25 for the flipbook cover, we're talking about just over $200 for a 6-inch e-ink reader device. Now granted, it packs a lot of punch and it's a lot more than just an e-ink reader device, but it has to be taken into consideration that it is considerably more expensive than the respective competitors, such as the Amazon Kindle Paperwhite or the Kobo Libra H2O. So that's something that also needs to be taken into consideration. Now for the pros, and there's a lot of them, definitely. For me, I'm gonna start off with the size. Yep, for me, the size is a pro. So I don't mind it being that small. On the contrary, it's something that I find unbelievably awesome about it. And it actually transforms the usability of the device into something different than, say, Nova 2 or Note 2. So that small format and the layout of the entire device and how it's being thought of, it just lends itself to be always by your side, and it's never a hindrance to use it, and it's always just so nimble and accessible. I don't know how else to explain it, but it lends itself to be used all the time because it's so small. So that's, for me, that's just my own impression. So for me, the size, the small size, is definitely a plus. The design and the build quality are absolutely stunning. Poke 2, as far as the design and build quality and the materials feels like a generational step up compared to the other devices. That's not saying that the previous devices were badly built or anything, not even close. I mean, Max 3 is fantastically built, Nova 2 is fantastically built as well. However, the combination of the design and the materials used and the precision of manufacturing and all that kind of stuff, it just as a package feels like a step up. So that's definitely a pro for PUB 2. Reader capabilities. I mean, now this is the 4th video where I have to put the reader capabilities as a pro, but they are in Note 2, Nova 2, Max 3, and now PUB 2. Reader capabilities are absolutely unparalleled. Now I've been testing out the dedicated e-reader device as well that I've never actually owned or used before, and still the Onyx Boox Neo Reader experience is just way up top. There are some features that I would like to see, but more on that sometime later in a later comparison video. But overall, as an ebook reader, it's really awesome. If you take into consideration that it does not support DRM formats. Even at a small format of 6 inches, it's surprising how much functionality it's able to give you for technical PDF documents that are not optimized for, definitely not for this small site, because of the functionalities of that e-reader, because of the navigation, because of the formatting, because of all of these things. It just is a way more usable device than you would initially think it is. Performance and specifications. I mean, there's really no comparison. No other 6-inch e-ink ebook reader can even come close to this, let alone compete. So yeah, a class of its own. Battery life. Well, one of the requirements, one of the points of any e-ink device is extended battery life, and PUB 2 delivers. I've been using it daily and reading in intervals between 1 and 3 hours a day. It really depends how much time I had. I find it really impressive and usable that the last time I charged it was 4 weeks ago. Yeah, and now even after this review, which was hours and hours of filming, it's now down to 19%. Definitely a big plus, because it's something that you can charge up and use for a month and then charge it up again and use it another month. Really cool. Connectivity and versatility of the product. I mean, most important of all for me is the ability to simply plug the device into your computer and have it work as a USB drive, so that I can drag and drop documents onto it, off it, organize the folder structure and all that kind of stuff. Definitely has it. But more than that, we have the Bluetooth as well. So that's really cool for speakers and for headphones. However, it's other peripherals as well. So for example, I've been using my Bluetooth keyboard with the PUB 2 to write emails, documents, write up annotations if I wanted to, and all sorts of kind of stuff. So if you wanted to, that's definitely something that you can use. And suddenly that, once you start using the keyboard with this tiny little thing, it just shows you that there's yet another layer of customizability, versatility, and yeah, just the overall functionality of the device. And it's really something. Finally, it's an Android 9 tablet, so the extras are off the charts when compared to other ebook readers. Because, yeah, if you want to use Dropbox, you got it. If you want to use OneDrive, you can. If you want to use Google Drive, you can. It really doesn't matter. Now, some people are gonna go, yeah, but my OneNote doesn't work and stuff like that. All right, well, I'm gonna make a separate video to try and explain that from a developer perspective of how that argument is a completely upside down argument, and that's something that we're going to discuss a little bit later on. But yes, this is a fully functional Android 9 device. Whether or not developer's app is compatible and supports the device is up to the developer, not up to the device itself. So that's something that's quite important to keep in mind. However, since this guy doesn't have any note-taking capabilities, then that argument is out of the window, and you have a fully functional Android 9 tablet in PUB 2, which is awesome. So what's the overall conclusion of this little device? I absolutely love it. I had it now for 4 weeks. So this is my own personal device that I bought to try out, and I'm definitely keeping it simply because it's won my heart and it's won my daily routines, and it kind of squiggled its way into being one of the most used devices in my daily routine, surprisingly. And I think it has to do with the combination of everything, so much power in such a small format, and when you put it all together, you get a package that's small, beautiful, powerful, versatile, and overall just an amazing experience. I think the Onyx Boox Poke 2 is a complete knockout. It's an amazing device. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I have to thank you guys because the channel has just passed 4,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. So this inspires me to actually do more and more and more, and a lot more stuff is coming up. So the coming weeks are gonna be filled with unboxings, reviews, comparisons of other devices such as the Amazon's new Kindle, Paperwhite, Kobo Libra, H2O, and some other ones as well. Thank you so much. You're making it possible for me to actually obtain these devices and review them in an impartial and objective way, and I can review them, test them without any pressure from anyone outside, so that I can give you the most honest and objective picture, which is something that you value. I value that you value my work. I hope that makes sense. Either way, without complicating further, thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video. Speaking of the next video, Nova 2, Poke 2. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon. Bye!